Hey everyone, I'm Christian Garman from the University of West Florida Innovation Institute. This, of course, Dr. Amy Mitchell-Cook, chair of the Department of History at UWF. So Amy, we're heading out to Deadman's Island.
Yes.
And right away I'm thinking, they got to rename this island. Who was in charge of marketing for this place?
It's had that name for a long time. There are various theories about how and why it actually has that name. But there are actually some dead men that have been found out there.
Oh my goodness, okay, so that's one of the many stories we're going to be hearing about as we head out to Deadman's Island. And if you don't know, Deadman's Island is on the south side of Pensacola Bay, butted up against the northern coast of Gulf Breeze. In fact, as you're cruising across the 3 Mile Bridge, if you were to look to the right there, you could see it off in the distance. So we're heading that way to tell you some great stories. Okay, so we are now on Deadman's Island, and Amy, as I've told you before, I grew up here. I've certainly heard of Deadman's Island many times. I've never been here, but this is a pretty historical place.
It is. You'd be surprised. It has several different historical events that have happened here. There's going all the way back to prehistoric. So there's been some evidence of prehistoric people living.
Really?
Not permanently here, but probably fishing, coming down from the mainland and fishing and camping and getting their food and resources and then heading back out.
Something like that's so interesting to me because it's a pretty small island.
Yes.
And I would think over that amount of time, I'm surprised there was anything left to sort of find or prove with that. You know what I mean?
Just kind of buried in the sand.
Incredible.
And it erodes out and it gets covered up and it erodes out. So there's been actually quite a lot of preservation, surprisingly, for giving such a small island.
So what else? What else from the past can we talk about?
Well, coming in about the probably early 18th century, this area here, especially, you see this curved area, was a cranage. And so this would have been Old Navy Cove, or at least sometimes termed Old Navy Cove, that ships could come up into the shallow water, so it's deep and then it gets shallow very quickly.
Okay.
And then they can clean their ships. So what they do is they'd haul them up a little bit further. And one of the reasons why this is called Deadman's, as some people think, is that you would have a large block or timber somewhere on land. It's called a deadman for some reason, that big timber, and you could pull the ship up further so that you could bring it up, heel it over onto the side, scrape all the barnacles and fix and repair and patch, put it on the other side. So that occurred throughout the 18th century. And then as you get into the mid-19th century, there's going to be a marine railway put in on the north, or I should say the north, on the east side of the island.
Okay.
And you used to be able to see some timbers and a large brick mound. And so what they would do is then put the ship onto this marine railway and then haul it out and then clean the sides and repair and do that. Another reason why people call this Deadman's is that there was a quarantine station here. And so worried about malaria, yellow fever, things like that. So ships would come in, they'd stay here until they were cleared from whatever disease they thought they had, probably yellow fever. And so there was a station, a wharf, and things like that built up. But in 2005, several bodies eroded out. And we think that they were associated with the quarantine station, that they had passed away and then had been buried.
In 2005? Where were those bodies? Whereabouts were those bodies?
Over that way, up by the points. And so they were at the very tip of the island, what is sometimes called Town Point, near the Marine Railway. And at that point, there's really nothing left. It was almost a root mat. And so a couple of residents actually discovered this after Hurricane Dennis, I think it was, that they found some human remains, some bones, actual bones.
Yeah.
And then these mats were eroding out, and they are in the shape of a coffin lid. And so as we were sort of removing them, saving them, because they were starting to float out into the water, you could see more human matter come into it. The vegetation, the trees had sucked into anything that had nutrients, which were the bodies.
Incredible.
And the wood, and so all that was left was, the shape of the coffin. We found maybe a couple nails, but that was it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Incredible. Wow. Amazing stuff.